the one game that both of us, well, you finished, I sort of played it. I guess you can call it finished on my side because I don't plan to play it anymore. But you finished Ghostwire Tokyo, the latest game from Evil Within creators, Tango Games.
Correct.
Yeah, this game it's weird.
So let's start with the most glaring question. Well, not a question I've been dying to ask you. Did you play in performance mode or quality mode?
Performance mode.
Performance mode. What did you think of quality mode?
I tried it a bit. I think it definitely looks a bit better because quality mode has the whole ray tracing, and in a world where it's constantly raining, that kind of works really nicely. But it just felt super sluggish, did not enjoy it. To me, even in performance mode, I started messing around with the controls because I was like, wow, turning around feels weird.
100%. I upped the sensitivity on turning because it just felt slow. So
it felt slow, but also it had a weird acceleration curve. It would be
it
sort of fast
slow
and then super slow. You hit mud or something. It just did not feel great. Considering that this game actually at its essence is, honestly, this game is a first-person shooter. If you had to ask me.
It's a first-person shooter. Yeah. So the reason I asked about performance and quality is because I grabbed footage of both, and I was like, I don't know which one to show. So people watching the video feed, you're watching performance mode. It's silky smooth. It's got a little bit less reflective shenanigans and visual effects.
Still looks really good.
But the game, I think, let's start visually. The game looks good. If you're gonna play it though, I think performance mode is the way to go because, like we said, the game itself feels very sluggish. But we'll
also just straight performance mode because there's 6 different.
There's 4,000 modes in this game.
Yeah, just stick to normal performance mode. I actually genuinely don't know what the others properly do. So.
Yeah. But let's backpedal a bit, I guess, and just say what Ghostwire Tokyo is. So you said it's the latest game from Tango Games, People Behind Evil Within 1 and 2, which, if you know, I can't for the life of me remember the guy's name, but it's basically the guy who invented Resident Evil, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if he's there anymore.
No, I don't know if he's there anymore, but that's their claim to fame. He works on
Shinji Mikami.
He works on Evil Within 1 and 2, and then that studio went, you know what? We're going to explore a first-person game. And, you know, when Ghostwire Tokyo was first revealed, it was like, holy shit, first-person horror game from these people. That seems like a good time. Unfortunately, the game it's the atmosphere nailed. Very cool.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, very spooky, but it's calling this a horror game, I feels like a stretch. It's very, you hit the nail on the head. It's a first-person shooter. But it's weird because, but we'll get to it. So the story basically is, even the story itself, I'm like, you start out, you've clearly been in some accidents of some sort, and somebody possesses your body. The main character's name is Akito, and then you find out that basically a cop named KK, who is now a spirit, has possessed you, and you two kind of have to work together to figure out what's going on in this town that has now just been wiped out completely and taken over by demons. And that's really the story in a nutshell. Also, Akito has a sister who has been taken by the big bad guy wearing a mask, and that's about all you need to know about this story, because I don't think it really goes further than that, other than, you know, the relationship of the two. They start off very strained because Akito's like, hey, I'm a human, get out my body, you spirit. The spirit's like, you're actually dead. But over the story they get a bit closer, and that's quite cool. But story aside, the game is a open world exploration game where you just have to, find your way to Akito's sister and figure out what is going on with this bad guy. But the journey there, not so good, because I don't know, Ghostwire Tokyo is this weird game that misses on so many fronts. I know we keep saying it's a shooter, but because it feels like a shooter, you've got these hand attacks that you use to get rid of these enemies. But I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're right. It nails the atmosphere. Like you're walking through the streets of Tokyo, and it is like it's like a pseudo open world. It's like you have these areas to explore at will, but you've got this fog that kind of blocks off other areas of the city until you cleanse a sort of gate. So like if you think of like Far Cry and its towers, the towers was sort of like what revealed the map. These gates are essentially what lets you explore the rest of the map. So as you're progressing between story missions, you have to routinely stop to cleanse these gates so you can actually get to where you need to go.
Yeah.
And that's what's strange to me is that that's the whole loop of the game. Like that loop is kind of introduced in the first hour, and then that's it. Like it doesn't. I mean, I've only played about 2 or so hours, but speaking to you, you were like, that loop doesn't really get altered in any fundamental way, from the beginning to the end.
Well,
And so, yeah.
No, I was going to say it's funny because I said to you before we started recording that watching the trailers, because you don't know what's actually happening, it looks very cool. You're like, wow, look at all these hand spells, these effects, visually gorgeous. Like, I won't crit the game on that front because it is, taking down these demons and enemies looks really good. But when you get into the game, I laugh because you played the first hour and then I was like, well, what spells do you have? And you said, I've got the wind attack, I've got the fire attack, and I've got the water attack. And I was like, well, spoiler, you've got all the spells. And you had that within the first hour.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you get other tools, right? So did you ever get the bow and arrow?
Yeah. I got the bow and arrow. You also get that fairly early.
You get that fairly early.
But that seems more like a tool than a weapon. You're using it.
They used it
sometimes.
Okay, so you use a bow and arrow to cleanse those trees, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you can just use your spells on those trees.
Are you?
Which I figured out like many hours in. I was like, oh, then why do I even need this bow and arrow? Why would I ever use this?
Yeah, because it doesn't really hurt enemies.
No,
either.
So mechanically it's used. There are some story beats where you are separated from KK. And obviously you don't have the powers and you have to, it's more like stealth, you have to use a bow and arrow. But other than that, it's like, it's a tool you don't really use. Like, why would you use it? Yeah. And then you get some other utility spells. So for example, you get a stun talisman, which, throw it down and it creates a little area of effect that enemies get stuck in. But like, you get 3 main spells, which, I don't know, it feels like it's such a missed opportunity. I mean, look, within these spells, you get some variation, right? Like your water attack, if you tap attack, you just shoot once, whatever. But if you hold and charge up an attack and let go, you do a couple,
like an area of an effect attack. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like a couple of attacks are released. And the same applies to the others, right? Like the fire one, it's a straight projectile, but if you hold it, it becomes like a bomb. I think the best description I heard is that your wind attack is like a pistol. Your red attack's like a rocket launcher, and your wind attack's a lot like a shotgun because it's short range, but high area
wide area of
effect. Yeah, and like the bones are there, but then why was that not expanded on? Like even the skill. So you get a skill tree in this game where you can improve these abilities, but even those, it's like, cool, you've got this rocket launcher. If you upgrade it, it'll have a bigger area of effect.
Yeah, like, they're very boring upgrades.
It's not like you can now, I don't know, shoot 2 or 3 of them or lay it down as a mine, for example. It's very like basic things. It's like it's not really fun.
And
I
think what makes it worse is that, again, the enemies, I feel like in the first half an hour I'd seen. I mean, the enemies were just repeating constantly, and they weren't doing anything different. Like they were just like, so you see these like Slender Man with like umbrellas. They just run at you.
They run at you,
and then every now and then they'll shoot a projectile at you, and then you get these like headless like schoolgirls who kind of just do the same thing.
Yeah,
and it's just like, well, I don't need to think about what spell I'm using.
No, you just
because the enemies aren't really forcing me to do anything. So I'm just like, cool, well, fire seems fun to use here, or like wind seems fun to use here, or and you and Darren, I remember we're talking a lot about the the core mechanics. So once you've done enough damage to an enemy, you can just hold down L2 and you like do this. It looks very Doctor Strange vibe thing. You like grab this core and you've got these like yellow energy strings in there. You can see it in the footage now, and you're like pulling out their heart, and it feels kind of cool. Well, you guys were like, oh, it feels amazing on the controller. I was like, it just feels like it's vibrating to me. So maybe I'm missing something.
I think it's more, it just feels satisfying to do.
Yes, like it looks incredible. Like the animation, you can feel like the tension of the kind of like pull on each time. But all it is like a instant death animation. And once I'd done it like a handful of times, I was like, okay, this is the same thing over and over again. So I think that's like my biggest issue with the game is like 2 hours in, I already felt like I'd done every sort of type of activity that the game had to offer. Yeah. And it was just throwing that again and again and again at me. Like, go to this waypoint, kill 3 enemies, absorb souls, do that ad nauseum. Like, and I was just like, I'm done. Like, I think I've seen what I need to of this game, essentially.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about it over the week, and I think that's not my biggest criticism, but a criticism of the game is that, like, what makes Doom fun? Think about it. Like, you get all these tools. There's a whole lot of enemies to take out. It's fast paced, right?
There's certain weapons that are better against other enemies.
This game is not that. Like, it almost feels like there should be a Doom-esque game, because it's not horror, okay? But cool, that we're going to make you fight all these enemies, but we're going to give you very slow movement speed. They're not going to like flank you. They're just going to run at you. You're just going to backpedal away, keep your distance, and just keep tapping fire. Whereas like Doom, it's a thing of, you move around fast, you sprint around, you've got a whole lot of different weapons to choose. It feels like this game would have benefited from that sort of thing, include more spells, give Akito some movement options, like make him run faster for starters, okay?
Or if you're going to make it slow and purposeful, like make the enemies more complex so that you have to, use your movement wisely or your skills wisely.
Exactly, But that brings me to our next point, where it's the thing of, okay, so it's not Doom. It's not a fast-paced shooter. It's meant to be a horror game like Resident Evil. What makes Resident Evil good, though? It's the tension and figuring out how to, get rid of enemies with, you've got ample ammunition, but it always feels like you might just run out at any point. This game's neither of those. Like, it's weird because on a visual front, it makes me think like it should have been kind of like a Doom. It's flashy. It's got enemies for you to take down. It doesn't do that. It's meant to be a horror game like Resident Evil, but it doesn't do that either. So I'm like, I don't know. It
sits somewhere between. I'm not sure entirely what. Like, I can sort of get what they were going for. Like, they wanted this pseudo open world thing, in these very densely detailed streets of Tokyo, which look phenomenal. But then it was just like, to me, it feels like this game at some point wasn't open world, it was linear. And then it turned into 100%. This open world thing, and they just didn't have things to do there with that.
Even, and that is my last point, is that this should not be an open world game. If it were a set piece, linear story, I think it would have been a lot better. And, it would have maybe given them opportunity to do more interesting things outside of just cleanse this gate, do this thing.
And I think you can see that in just how, I'm not one to bemoan length or whatever, because I think a short, tight experience is better than a long, drawn out one. But like, you finished the game in like 10 hours.
Yeah, 11
So to
hours.
me, it tells me that there was definitely this plan to make it more linear, and then they just put this open world bloat in between. And it just, I don't know, I don't get it. I just really do not. I don't understand like what this game, like its ultimate vibe is. It feels like a lot of ideas that just exist together and they do not coalesce at all.
100%. Which is such a pity, because like, I mean, I know I say this about a lot of games that miss the mark, but I feel a sequel could do this game justice. Like, the end feels like, it doesn't need a sequel. But if they were to use the same characters or just do an alternate game somewhere else and they take lessons from it and make it a linear, more purposeful game, like, yeah, I'd be very keen to play that, because like the visual effects in this game, I really enjoyed it. It's like there's a reason I finished it. It wasn't, I mean, it's like a bit of a grudge thing of like I'm 6-7 hours in, I might as well see it to its end. But I wouldn't say no to seeing, what could they improve on this game with the sequel, taking these lessons to heart. But it's weird because this game will come to Game Pass in a year, because it's Bethesda's now Xbox owned. It's timed exclusive on PlayStation, and it's on PC as well. This is a Game Pass game. Like if I told somebody like, yeah, Ghostwire Tokyo is okay, and it's on Game Pass, you can try it out. Cool. There's no commitment financially. I'm not gonna get somebody to spend 1,000 rand and they go, oh man, I can't believe I dropped 1,000 rand in this game, whatever it costs. It's the thing of like, oh yeah, I played on Game Pass. I either really liked the open world side of it or I hated it. Like, it's the perfect Game Pass game. So yeah, if
you sit down with this for a bit and you've just downloaded it, you might find things that you enjoy, and you might put up with it a bit more because you haven't spent, Sony's $70 on this. This just doesn't. It doesn't reach that same bar in my view. Like when you're comparing this to the likes of other exclusives that have come out on PS5, like your Deathloop even.
Yeah, I was going to say the other Bethesda, their
just feels on a completely different ballpark. Better.
Yeah, stands head and shoulders above this game. Just a pity.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
It's a really missed mark. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
I would love to know, like, I feel like this game is ripe for a story in a year or two to be like, this is what Ghostwire Tokyo actually was like a year or two before it was put out. Because, I mean, we saw this game like 3-4 years ago at E3, and it just doesn't, visually, it definitely sustains that vibe. But I just feel like the game is different.
Something happened.
Something happened, you know what I mean? What was the developer who was on stage, Nakumi Nakamura?
Yeah.
She left the studio like not long after. She like basically gave this game a huge presence at E3 with her charming stage presence.
Some meme-worthy presence.
So it's just like, did this game like fundamentally change design-wise that people weren't vibing with, or I don't know. I'm curious to know. I feel like there is a story here.
Yeah.
But the story right now is I don't think you need to rush out to buy this game. I just don't.
It's a Game Pass game through and through.
Yeah, it's a Game Pass game. And
I think
it's got some cool elements.
Exactly. I think it's some people will definitely vibe with it, but yeah.
I think it's worse than Evil Within. Like, I know some people really vibed with Evil Within, some didn't. I think Evil Within is good, not fantastic, but I do think I think rather go play Evil Within 2.
But Evil Within is more horror.
Yeah, it's a completely different game.
Yeah. So yeah. Pity. Yeah. But that is Ghostwire Tokyo. Sad. You hate to see it.
Hate to see it.